Jesus Christ according to John.
Glory to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Jesus said, "As the Father has loved me, so I have loved you. Abide in my love. If you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love. I have said these things to you so that my joy may be in you, and that your joy may be complete. This is my commandment, that you love one another as I have loved you. No one has greater love than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command you. I do not call you servants any longer, because the servant does not know what the master is doing. But I have called you friends, because I have made known to you everything that I have heard from my Father. You did not choose me, but I chose you, and I appointed you to go and bear fruit that will last, so that the Father will give you whatever you ask in my name. I am giving you these commands so that you may love one another." The Gospel of God.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
There, I think I've adjusted that. Anyway, this is the second time I've gotten to do this homily. I'm not too sure it will improve with the second time around, but we'll see. It's a case of, you love one another as I have loved you, is what we are commanded. Being a mother is basically about love. The bond of love between a mother and her child. There's a Jewish proverb that says, God couldn't be everywhere, so he created mothers. When I was a child, being a mother was a pretty straightforward process. You had a child, saw to its safety and welfare, while you got on with the routine of your day. There weren't any playpens. So I'm told that I spent a fair amount of my pre-walking life in a galvanized laundry tub. Set out of the way, but still under the eyes of my carer. When I could walk and the weather was cooperative, I was put into a little leather harness made by my father, with a rope attached to me and attached to the clothesline, and a dog attached to a rope on a clothesline as well. You know, this didn't bring me up with a terrible fear and dread of clotheslines or dogs. So it couldn't have been all that harmful. Thankfully, in those days, women's magazines were full of recipes, knitting patterns, and hints for homemakers. Somewhere along the line, we had begun to sentimentalize the role of mother. A mother image began to evolve of a woman who was selfless and wise, loving and ever-present. A woman who thought only of the welfare of her child and always ahead of her own needs. Magazines began to extol the role of mother, assuring her that were she to be found wanting in any area of the child's upbringing, she would bear the responsibility of that damage for the rest of her life. And while all this redefinition of being a mother was going on, the extended family, the grandmother who rocked the cradle, the aunt who took the child for a walk, the kindly neighbor who would keep an eye on the child for a couple of hours and disappeared. Love was replaced by anxiety, a fear of some action that would affect the child's future harmfully. I remember a cartoon once with the caption that read, "Keep your eye on the ball, your shoulder to the wheel, your nose to the grindstone, and then try to work in that position." Well, that was how mothers found themselves. They had to try to follow the advice and these social strictures that were all around them, while at the same time trying to maintain a family and a household in which to raise a child or children. And once a year, mother's role and her life are celebrated. Then there's a Spanish proverb, and I apologize, I will do it again. I apologize to Jim for this. "An ounce of mother is worth a pound of clergy." Who is it that gets the kids up on Sunday morning, sees that they're tidily dressed, and trots them off with her to church? The mother. Perhaps the grandmother. When my children were young, we had a dairy farm, and although I don't naturally have a suspicious turn of mind, I did wonder why a cow chose Sunday morning to be ill enough for my husband to have to stay with it. Oh well, it was mother who asked the child, "What did you learn in Sunday school today?" as she peeled the carrots for dinner. Not because she needed to know, but to take the child's mind off sticking its finger into the icing of the cake that was for dessert. Who also taught the child their bedtime prayers and listened to them each night. And who also wondered if God was really going to bless the neighbor's cat and batch of newborn kittens. It was mother who taught the commandment, "Love thy neighbor as thyself," with variations. "Don't hit your sister. Do you really want her to hit you back?" To children, a clergy person wore a funny collar and spoke loudly. There was one child who looked at the Reverend's clerical collar and said, "My dog has one of those too. Kills fleas and ticks. Does yours?" Now, the absence of young people in our congregation is blamed on the mother who didn't insist on taking her child to church. The mother who held a full-time job and only had weekends to catch up on such things as laundry, a bit of baking for the school lunches, and whatever. The mother who was up bright and early Saturday morning to take the youngsters to hockey practice and just wanted to lie abed one morning a week. She will, however, be blamed for the falling attendance at church. That fact borne in on her as her children sit with her once a year on Mother's Day, or aren't sitting with her, as the case may be, but home sleeping in. And then there are women who miscalculate and are called mothers. Not all children are planned. Not all children are raised in a two-parent family. Not all children are the product of a union blessed by the church. Some of these women are very young, little more than children themselves, faced with the sole responsibility for a little human. We give the young mom enough financial support in one form or another, then complain if she has to go to the food bank by the end of the month. We give out turkeys at Christmas and a wee gift for the child, and feel good about our generosity, while at the same time blaming the young mum for being foolish enough to get pregnant and blaming her mother for not parenting her well enough. when the child goes to school, there's not supposed to be, but there is occasionally a sort of code that suggests that the child's family are on assistance, and therefore the child will naturally be an underachiever. And we tell ourselves Jesus' words, "You are to love one another as I have loved you." Once upon a time, when we're all living in tribal villages, I don't remember those exactly, but I'm sure we did, we saw children as the future of our tribe. Their health, their ability to be part of the social order of the tribe, their skills, their knowledge of the world around them were all passed on by the tribe. Mothers were important, but the responsibility for the life of the children was shared by the tribe. We no longer seem to share that responsibility. It has become primarily that of the mother. And so we complain, no children in Sunday school, few young adults in our church, young people feeling rejected by society, joining gangs to have a feeling of belonging. I could go on with a great list of ills of the world laid on the head of bad parenting. Primarily, the failure of the mother. Rather than loving them, we isolate them as being failures for not having raised their children to our standards. So where do you begin? In this technological world that we live in, how can we show support to mothers? And be darned if I know. Perhaps by recognizing that today's mothers are our daughters of yesterday, and cutting them some slack. Perhaps instead of seeing all the peculiarly dressed young folk as potential delinquents and failures of their mothers, we see them as our future and give them a smile. The future will certainly be interesting. So happy Mother's Day. Give a hug to your children. Give a hug to any child you see. May I remind all that without these children, we would not be mothers. May God hold you in the palm of his hand. May you allow him to mold you into what he wants you to be. May you joyfully fill the role he has given you and feel peace in your soul. Amen.